Hi everyone, this is Bohali. I'm today's presenter. Actually, I'm working for Qlik Support as a senior tech support engineer. Currently, I'm working in enterprise team, and my main focus is help and assist our customers and partners to develop with Qlik Sense, Qlik View, and then printing projects and apps to achieve their business goals. And another my Another of my main focus is to work a lot with OEM partners on Qlik APIs and SDKs. Uh, on the other hand, I also support data connectors for mostly provided by Qlik, which is a SAP connector, Salesforce, Google BigQuery, our own new RESTful connector, and then all the others provided by Qlik. So today we're gonna talk something about troubleshooting Qlik Sense APIs. Today's agenda will be started with a Qlik Sense API overview. We will talk about all the APIs in Qlik Sense and talking something about they communicate with each other, how they organize in the system, and some kind of background architect. And afterwards, we will share some thoughts and the troubleshooting experience on Qlik Sense APIs about how, as a Qlik support, we troubleshoot the problems with our customers and partners. And by the end, of course, we will conclude everything and make some takeaway for you. I will also try to answer your questions in the FAQ session. So here is some kind of the terms we're gonna go through today. Uh, we will use them quite often. If you know all of them, that would be great. If you don't know, just to have time to read it afterwards, maybe. So if let's talk about the Qlik Sense API overview. As we know, Qlik Sense is a very API-driven platform, not only for external usage, but Qlik internal communication relies on API as well. So the purpose to do it is to make it a full transparency between the internal usage and the extensions or external calls. And of course, it will achieve a very easy integration for external or third-party solutions or extra additional modules. And the one big benefit we can get from it is because we are using the unique logging framework, so everything will be logged down, no matter the internal traffics, but also the external ones. And another typical feature is in Qlik Sense is most of the APIs are web-friendly. As we understand, Qlik Sense is based on several Windows services. They communicate each other with web protocols. Some of them are based on RESTful, some of them are based on the library, and some of them are based on the WebSocket. And the underlying integration language we're using is C# for some specific usage, such as user directory connector or customer data connector like QVX SDKs. But most of the mainstream web APIs, they are web-based. They are JavaScript library, like what we have used for extension, mashup, dev integration, and our service level APIs are all RESTful, like repository service, QRS, and the proxy service, QPS. And of course, Qlik Engine API is one of the most important API in the system. Is based on the WebSocket. It relies on the context and relies on the context and the session. So mainly, Qlik Sense API has three parts. The first part is slice or section. We call it client API. It's built up by several sub-APIs. Qlik Engine API, Backend API, Extension API, Integration API, and one special capability API, because it's a big API with a lot of granular cell APIs underlying it. It was called Mashup API in QlikSense 1.0 or in the first generation. And all these APIs are available currently in the 2.0 and 2.2 versions. And in the latest QlikSense 3.0, we will have this very special visualization API introduced. And on the server side, we have mainly two different APIs. One is a repository service API. That's the main resource-based API in the QlikSense system. So you can fetch and control or edit all the resources stored in QlikSense, such as apps, content library, license, security, tasks, or users even. And another one is a proxy service API that's mainly used to for the authentication and the communication based APIs, such as a session module API and the load balancing and the proxy ones, of course, including the web ticketing and some other single sign-on solutions. And the third part is a connectivity API. That's usually used in another way to extend our system into a third-party applications. We provide .NET SDK, C#, actually a C# library for our partners or our end users to create their own programs to communicate directly to our Qlik engine. And QBX SDK is usually used as a custom connector SDK library to actually allow the user to build their own data connectors to feed data into Qlik View or QlikSense to have the data integrate or to be ETL'd into our next step. And of course, there's one more thing introduced in QlikSense as a user directory connector API. We call it UDC connector, UDC API, which is used to build the customized user directory service data connection API, which is used in QMC to connect, to synchronize more different kind of based users into QlikSense for authentication authorization later. QlikSense provides the basic Active Directory service and the basic LDAP service connections, but for those kind of very specific purpose, our end users can also set their own directory connectors. So if we go to the client APIs, first API we will come to is the extension API. The extension API is actually is a JavaScript library. It's usually used to create custom visualizations in QlikSense Hub, such as an additional type of chart, a control panel with buttons, or even a video stream on YouTube or some other sources. The extension API totally relies on JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. It will be treated as same as all the other Qlik templates in the system, such as the basic bar chart, table chart, pivot chart, anything like that. So you will be able to create your own charts based on the extension API. And when it comes to the data, so if you have the extension API, for example, you create your own charts, you want to actually communicate with the QlikSense engine to fetch the data, what we call hypercubes, data aggregations, or anything to evaluate your expressions through the engine, you need to use the backend API. The backend API goes through the QlikSense proxy and all the way down to QlikSense engine. So here is the backend API. So when you go all the traffic will go through the Sense proxy and go into the Qlik Sense engine. The purpose to do it is to have the unique authentication authorization way for your extensions. And on the engine side, of course, we have a Qlik Engine API. That one is a WebSocket-based API, and it's actually provides all the functions backend API uses. Backend API is more like a JavaScript library with a lot of helper functions to to ensure the communication with the Qlik Sense to access data, evaluate expressions, and do selections or save the current extensions to to the repository. And underlying it is the Engine API. Engine API provided the most plain or the most underlying functions based on WebSocket and JSON format data context to communicate with our external programs, not only Qlik Sense hubs, but also the external programs through our .NET SDK. The Qlik Engine API is a WebSocket protocol that uses JSON to pass information between the Qlik Sense engine and the client. It can be used independently, which means you could build external program to communicate with Qlik Engine through WebSocket. So when you actually, the next step is to outsource all of our charts or extensions to external server. For example, you want to put a chart or a stream from Qlik Sense to your web portal. Definitely in that way you will have one of our API called the integration API. It uses URL to return a complete HTML page which contains a Sense app or a single object. And based on these architect, we also provide a very powerful API, which is called the Capability API. It's used to be used here. It stays here. It used to be called as a mashup API, as we mentioned. It's granular APIs, and most of them can be used in extensions for internal usage or mashups for external usage. It gives very, very power global functions to enable detailed controls over Qlik Sense apps. So probably for extension API, you will be able to build something inside Hub like this. So you will have our native objects, but you can also build something differently. With the Capability API, definitely you can put our charts into your own web portals. It doesn't matter which portal, where you are or which website you are. It just can outsource or fetch all the charts to put onto your own web pages. So after that, we can talk something about the server side APIs. Within Qlik Sense domain, you always have a proxy stand in front of all the other services. And compared to client APIs, server APIs are more uniformed. In this case, we have two main APIs. One is on the proxy service, we call the proxy service API. Another is called repository service API over here. And both of them are based on REST web services. They provide many endpoints, which we called path in Qlik Sense, to achieve various functions for external communications. In Qlik Sense API, it mainly you have two options to communicate from external. First, for QPS API, it mainly provides authentication, web ticketing, user and session-related features, which enables a third-party authentication or a single sign-on solution. Another most important another important API, repository API, it actually focuses on fetching the resource, setting configurations, controlling the task in ClickSense. It's like doing the same job in QMC, but just in programmatic way. In QlikView, there's a similar thing we call the QMS API. It's quite similar to each other, but just this one, I mean, the repository service API is just more powerful. So you have basically two options to reach the repository API. The first one is definitely the typical usage. It goes through the proxy, and the proxy will call the scheduler service to do the load balancing in the multi-node environment. If it's a single node, of course, it will go to the repository directly. And when scheduler has balanced everything with a repository, it will pick up the most appropriate uh, node or to run the proxy repository tasks or the engine tasks. And this provides a typical way like you're doing things on the QMC or from your hub. And another way to connect to the repository service is to call the repository service on the port 4242 directly. It's actually get around of the services. It doesn't go through the authentication authorizations of passing via the proxy. So which means you will be able to do anything as required because you are not authorized or you are not actually authenticated at all. So you probably have all the power to do everything. This is actually a very powerful usage, but the trade-off is you need to pick a repository node yourself manually, especially in a multi-node environment. When you have multiple repositories, you have to pick one of them yourself. And of course, to ensure the security, you must have a certificate here, a client certificate to be installed on your external server to get to get past the authentications or the sort of authentication. So let's talking about some troubleshooting experience for ClickSense APIs. As we all know that the API stuff is always not easy to troubleshoot because it relies on too much unpredictable stuff externally because you are building, usually customers and partners are building their own solutions. We don't know really the details of how the code look like. So as a Qlik support, we can only share some kind of ideas here how to make it best practice in troubleshooting and what kind of information can help your communication to Qlik support more smoothly and efficiently to have your problems solved most quickly. So the first topic is about JavaScript APIs. Uh, we have a lot of JavaScript APIs such as extension API, backend API, and mashup API or capability APIs. For most JavaScript APIs, they are based on APIs. They are based on web-based APIs using browser. You can use the browser dev tool to troubleshoot will be a very good idea in this case. And those kind of dev tools can navigate the DOM elements in the page. They trace the network traffics and they catch the WebSocket frames. That's most important. So if we get some example here, so here is a mashup I've made. It has just a timeout. So if we refresh the page, we'll get a mashed up chart from another server. This is localhost. It actually reads the data from another ClickSense server. But actually, you will see there's an error occurred. If you press refresh, it will go back to this page infinitely. But if we close that, it just starts to work. So the way usually we do troubleshooting on this is to open our web dev tool. Usually you can go there just buy more tools and the dev tools. This is Google Chrome. All the other browsers such as IE Edge 11 or Firefox, Safari, they all have this function. As the web developer should be very familiar with it. The most important part we want to share here is actually for the web, the network part. So actually, when you're doing the sort, if you refresh the page, you will get all the networks traced down. Uh, so let me just make it smaller. So then you will have all the traffics in the system. And the most important, usually, we are interested in is the WebSocket ones to see if the WebSocket works fine or not. This is actually known issue in 2.1.1. The actually when you have a selection bar, it will trigger an additional WebSocket. Usually it's only one, but here it has another one, and it points to a wrong destination, which is localhost. It should point to the Qlik Sense server. So that works. This doesn't work because the local server is different server. This is something we have fixed in 2.2. But interesting thing here is we want to know is for most of the customer, we will suggest to record your frames in your WebSocket. Then this kind of a log, it actually catches all the traffics between the Qlik Sense server and your web clients. So it will be very valuable for troubleshooting or actually to raise a case for Qlik support. Then we can evaluate your content, your traffic talking to the Qlik engine. So we will be able to pinpoint the root cause and help you get rid of the issue. So let's talk about the second idea. Usually we have second topic is about engine APIs. We have some APIs are based on Qlik Engine APIs. Qlik Engine API is a WebSocket-based API. Upon it, we have talked about is a backend API, which is a JavaScript library, uses the helper functions to call Qlik Engine API to finish a certain job in a easy and quick way. And the .NET SDK is also a library, but it's a C# library based on the Qlik Engine API to provide C# library to do the jobs easier. And the Qlik Engine API relies on session and the context, which we have talked. It has a lot of frames it's based on the JSON syntax, and Qlik Sense Dev Hub the Qlik Sense Dev Hub provides a practical Qlik Engine API Explorer for learning and testing the issues. So if we go back to our environment, we will have sorry, here. Yeah, if we go to the Dev Hub, when you have your Qlik Sense server, you just put the Dev Hub afterwards. You will get to another hub, which is a black hub, and in a Docker theme, which is called Dev Hub. It provides the functions on the mashups, extensions, single configurations, which is the integration API. It provides all the associative functions in our system. Instead of using it on the app, you have the programmatic center here. One interesting thing here is called Engine API Explorer. So within this Engine API, you will be able to explore. You connect to Engine, you will be able to explore most of the functions in the Qlik Sense. You will have these functions. You will be able to get, for example, get app entries. If you execute it, it will just create a new communication, and this is all JSON-based traffics. you have your request sent, which is here. You can change that yourself, putting your own ID here and execute. You will be able to get new you will get the response from the engine talking about if it's a success or failure. You can do a lot of tests through this engine API Explorer and doing some learning as well. Then you know how to use these functions properly and how they work basically. And that will help you to get to slice your or to draw a line if it's the problem inside ClickSense or in or something not handled correctly in your code. And of course, if this doesn't, besides this Explorer, we will also in the QMC, we will also provide you a very advanced logging system in the engine system in the engine node. So if you go there in the logging part, you will be able to see a lot of detailed tracing logs. And in those tracing logs, we will suggest you to turn on the debug mode of some of them. The system log level will be always to have. The traffic log level is default disabled, but that will be very useful when you try to do some debug and troubleshooting, because it will include all the traffics go through the engine, and you will be able to see what happens and what has been triggered in ClickSense engine and what has been returned from it. It will write a lot of things. It will impact the performance a little bit if you have a very heavy jobs, but it will be very good to have when you do debug things. And if you don't remember to manually restart your engine service afterwards, because this to change the framework or logging framework into debug mode needs a restart of the service.
Buha, just a reminder, running a little low on time.
Sure, thank you. Yeah. So enable the engine debug logs will be one of definitely interesting part. And to send the debug logs directly to support, we will appreciate it for a lot of cases. Then we will be very clear what errors and what kind of traffics you have made, and try to help you get through the problems. The third one topic is the REST APIs. The REST APIs are, as we talked, is a QPS API and a QRS API. They are usually URLs. They have request headers and parameters, and the response is straightforward in JSON. Most of them are stateless, independent from other requests, so you can try them one by one without interfering with the others. And it is possible to simulate by a third-party tool, such as Postman. For a time constraint, I won't demo it here, but I will say if you can try to test all the APIs with a Postman or some other third-party simulator, then that will be much easier for you to slice out if it's a problem in ClickSense or it is external errors. So today's takeaway, as we talked, the API cases or problems usually are quite complex. We don't really have a very good pattern or single way to solve everything just in one shot. It's case by case. So if you really need our assistance, don't forget to do a very clear case clarity. For example, make a coded example to do the snapshots, videos, or detailed logs, the debug logs we have talked about with corresponding timestamps. Don't send over a month or years log files. That will just make things just slow, much slower. We need a very accurate timestamp. Then we can be more efficient in looking to the root cause and use the dev console if you have it's a JavaScript based app. If it's a JavaScript based API, if you have, please send over your dev console errors in your web browser, or if it's WebSocket ones, please send over your frames. And of course, for the rest or the other APIs, the JSON request and response will be always appreciated. And the API, actually, don't forget, it's Qlik API always works in the same way as native features. So log will trace everything. Try to enable debug logs and the traffic logs, and it will tell you more about what has really arrived the APIs and what has been returned from there. And as we talked and demonstrated today, to use more tools to help your debug, such as such as the browser dev tools. The Fiddler will be very good to have to trace the HTTP requests and responses, and the Engine Explorer to learn and to try out your JSON requests to the engine services, and the Postman to try out the REST APIs hosted on the repository service and the proxy service. And of course, you can always find some troubleshooting slides in our help page and ask your questions in the community. You are always welcome to come to contact us, Qlik support. And if the things get really messed up and complex, which we cannot solve immediately, we will definitely help you to create a problem investigation. Then we involve the R&D resource to have a look together with us. They will give a code level debug or even provide some kind of diagnostic build to deploy and to test out.
Hopefully we won't have to do problem investigation.
No, because the Qlik R&D is also on very high pressure. They need to release everything. They need to release the latest version, the next generation of software. So just we try to keep them easy and try to keep them more focused on their own work.
Okay, everyone. If you please have any questions, please submit them in the Q&A panel in the bottom right-hand corner. We'll try and address as many of them as we can. I see they're starting to come in now. Well, how do you remember how to find the Q&A panel, or should we get it?
Yeah, sure. I'm looking forward to that because I'm sharing now. Yeah, cool. I can see that.
Great.
Sure. Shall we start from the... We'll talk about the connector between Sense and JSON. What's that? What does it mean? Connector between. We will probably have a connector session later, specific about each of the data connectors, but maybe not in this session. There's a question, is it possible to create an extension based on the native default chart? For example, I'd love to, starting from a line chart, add a customer properties panel with some new properties. Till now, I create a new chart with some external libraries. It'll also work. Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, I've tried that myself, and I actually proposed this to our dev lead in the extension team, which is the famous one called Stefan Walder. He's also thinking about this because to Qlik Sense charts are very powerful already, but a lot of users or end users, they want to just enrich the function based on that. That saves a lot of energy. And I think in the latest third generation coming in June, it has a new feature called the Visualization API. It involves something similar to enhance the features based on the native charts in Qlik Sense. You can check it out later when the 3.0 beta comes out. Probably that will just sort of answer your question. Do you have any good examples you'd recommend looking through to learn how to use the repository and the proxy APIs with JavaScript? Uh, Actually, the repository and the proxy APIs, they are very well documented on our help page. But just don't forget to go to the Qlik Sense developer sections because that one is a more developer oriented and it has all the API documents and a lot of examples there. Of course, we we are trying to prepare more and better examples onto our help page and internal support as well to provide better support on or more intuitive examples to the end user to get a start with those APIs directly. But with JavaScript, I think in this way, it's just for the REST connectors, it's just firing a new request and add customize the headers yourself. So that's more like Ajax core. I think that's something you can search everywhere on the web how to do it.
Buha, we have time for one more question. We're a little short on time, but I would like to remind everybody to go ahead and enter your questions, and if we can't address your question in this live session today, we will address them offline and post the questions and answers on Qlik Community. So
and there's
one question.
Okay, so there is an interesting question. Is it possible to use Angular 2 when using and consuming the client APIs? It's as we all know, the Qlik Sense is based on Angular JS framework, but it's 1.7, 1.3, I think, or the latest version in 1. It hasn't, because it's introduced before Angular 2 was introduced. I'm not sure how our development center thought about in the future to migrate to Angular 2 or not, but I think we will keep on our own track a little bit further, so it will be only on AngularJS 1. But for AngularJS 2, I think because it's always JavaScript and CSS and HTML, so I would say if you do some tricks or do some kind of alternatives, they should be able to integrate them. That depends on how you program your charts, but definitely we can talk about it on the community.
Okay, great questions coming in. Thank you for submitting them. We'll address the ones we couldn't talk about now. We'll address those offline. Thank you to everybody for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this session, and thank you to Buhua for presenting.
Thank you.
Great getting technical experts like yourself to share with us. You could advance the PowerPoint. The recording and questions and answers will be available on the support community soon. And the next day or so, we will send out a survey to you. And we love hearing your feedback, so we'll be looking for that. Next slide. Our next Qlik Support Thursday will be September 22nd. And that presentation will be entitled Fast Solutions to Common Problems, and we're looking forward to that. If you have any additional comments, questions, or suggestions, please contact us at supportprograms@qlik.com. Also, soon the recording of this session, along with all of our previous Tech Support Thursday webinars, are available for you 24/7 on Qlik Community. Just log into Qlik Community from qlik.com and search the keyword Thursday. On the next slide, please. That's the URL. So just head to Qlik Community, search for the keyword Thursday, and you should be able to find it. Next slide is our legal disclaimer. And once again, thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of the day. See you after summer.